What's up, everybody? Gojo and Golic live from Radio Row. We got 2 hours of goodness coming your way. Here's a couple things you have to look forward to. The NFL Referees Association is not taking the accusations that they're rigging games lying down. Plus, Media Day. We got sights and sounds from around Super Bowl Media Day. And the rumor mill is going around. Are the Suns setting the sun on Kevin Durant? I don't know. We'll talk about that and more coming up right now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, master of teases. We got a great show for everybody, as always. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us, leave us a 5-star rating, and watch us here all week, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Check out the YouTube channel here. Good stuff coming up today, as Jesse mentioned. Great guest. Jeff Fisher going to stop by here. I didn't realize the AFL on the comeback tour.
It's awesome. And Jeff Fisher was my former D coordinator when I was in Philly as well. It'd be good to catch up with him as he is the interim commissioner.
There we go, interim commissioner. I wonder if he'll push for the full-time gig here.
Mm-hmm.
No one is going to make any jokes about Jeff Fisher's record here because he is a friend.
Yes, he is.
We care about him.
Right.
And he's a good man trying to do right with a great mustache. Bomani Jones going to stop by the right time with Bomani Jones' very own as we continue to digest the fallout from all this NBA trade news. And then Cam Jordan, the man about town, with Saints star defensive end, who's helping play host as everyone comes to his city.
And already hosted as playing the overall host, but the media party was last night.
Yes.
And it was, by all accounts, by the media, one of the best media parties ever at a Super Bowl. Media parties are on Tuesday nights here, and that's where basically the media all go for free food and drink.
Yes.
And we know one of the people in the host committee.
Yes.
And she told us that the biggest complaint by the media was there wasn't enough alcohol.
Last year
At the last year's Super Bowl. So she said that was issue number one.
Well, there were bars everywhere.
Bars everywhere.
Yeah, you couldn't walk 2 feet without a bar.
I mean, the media, and there were just hordes of media here just shoveling food and drinks. It was hilarious to watch.
Yeah, I walked in, someone threw some beads at me. I was like, oh, it's that kind of party.
Oh, yeah. No, they set the tone early and often on that. But
Well,
yes,
they threw beads at you. Did
Yeah, I was like, no, just kidding.
Okay.
No, I was like,
I'm
I'm a mom.
just wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
I'm
like, this is a bodysuit. I can't. Yeah.
It's hard to pee in this.
Yeah.
It was quite literally the Jordan meme from my friend. And I took that personally when they found out that had been the chief complaint. And so certainly no complaints coming off last night here. And that's been, so far this week, it's been phenomenal out here.
Yep.
And it's been that slow build towards this weekend that we're all getting prepared for right now as the players lock everything in here, as we've seen plenty of complaints left and right about the matchup, the lack of juice here, the rematch, all those different things here. But it's interesting what finally gave way yesterday was the referees battling back against.
They had enough.
It is so interesting watching the way that over the last really 2 weeks had sort of become the NFL headline, that it started off as this internet. We heard about, Kirk Herbstreit talk about the crazies or the parts of every fan base. It had felt like that amongst the internet folks that were just, usually upset about something, talking about the officiating because they've got to find an explanation for this Chiefs madness. It became enough to where everyone started addressing it, including Roger Goodell, including Travis Kelce and the players. And so we finally did hear from the officials. And, Dad, they made it abundantly clear they're not about this action. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
The NFLRA executive director, Scott Green, basically said it was preposterous and insulting to hear conspiracy theories that somehow 17 officiating crews consisting of 138 officials are colluding to assist one team. Then he goes into how NFL refs are graded every game. They never really do more than 2 games per team. And really, listen, it's odd to hear from anybody associated referees because you only hear from them after games, and it's one referee talking to a pool of reporters.
Yeah, they are only allowed to talk.
That's the only time they're allowed to talk, but they were like, no, we've had enough. We got to come out and speak about this.
But do you think that's sort of adding fuel to the fire? Like, everyone's addressing it so officially?
But I get them wanting to defend, if they think it is a ludicrous thing, wanting to defend it. And listen, I agree with them. I don't think they're assisting one team, but I do think that great players get calls. That has happened forever, in my opinion, that the better players get calls, especially the better quarterbacks will get the calls. I don't think they're honing in on the Chiefs. The Chiefs just happen to be winning all the time, and people are saying that's partially because of the referees. I don't agree with that at all, but I do think great players from around the league get calls.
I just also think when you have one team that is a part of so many big games and so many big moments, it's going to feel like they get more of everything because we see more of them. Because in the time of season that we prorate, they have been the more popular team. But I agree with the sentiment presented by, and Roger Goodell's the league is always going to come out and defend their officials at times more than I would like to see from them. But in this case, you understand it from them. You heard Travis Kelce, though, when he got a chance to ask the media a question, he said, why are you guys giving this so much life? And a lot of media, the refrain they turn around, and no joke, I was coming back last night, and I stopped for a nightcap on my way home. It's the first night I burned the candle a little bit too hard on the other end.
Yes, you did, youngster.
But I stopped at the bar for a nightcap on the way home, and I literally ended up in a 15-minute debate with the bartender about this, who was convinced that the Chiefs are getting more calls than everyone. Like, this is not just online fan theory. These are a bunch of fans who are looking out at this and who, again, have looked at this Chiefs team and struggled to find football reasons that are always readily apparent. They don't hit you over the head with many of them, especially during this regular season. This is the place that people default to when we are trying to understand something that people have a tougher time explaining.
Yeah, when what you need to understand is you have a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame tight end, a Hall of Fame head coach. Basically, if they would put D coordinators and O coordinators in the Hall of Fame, Steve Spagnuolo would be in the Hall of Fame. Yep. You got a potential Hall of Famer in Chris Jones at D tackle. You have great players and you have great coaches, and you have had coaches that have been there a while. So there's consistency in the coaching staff. They're just a great team. So again, I to your point, Jesse, at some point you got to say enough is enough, and we have to defend our own. But to your point, do you bring more headline to it by, oh, look at they're trying to defend it. But at some point, you have to get aggravated enough but I do agree that they are not favoring one team.
Yeah, I actually disagree on that. I am of the ilk where the more oxygen you give it, the more it's leading.
We're talking about it now.
We're talking about it now because they made this statement here. If you want to go and squash out the dissenters that you believe are a small faction in your fan base, go ahead and do it by not talking about it at all. So I think that this is decidedly weird strategy from the NFL, as big as it is letting the tail wag the dog.
Well, I guess Goodell did get asked about it. So if he had been like, no comment, then it would have been also been a headline. So he kind of had...
Oh, no, I more meant like the officials coming out and doing this.
I
Roger...
think they were like, this is our chance. Yeah. Like, we'll just tailgate on the back of it.
That is true.
Yeah.
If the
executive director, Scott Green, couldn't talk about it, he'd have had a bloody lip biting through his lip going, I gotta say something.
Come
I
on.
gotta say something here.
I know.
Exactly. So, no, again, it's one of those things. And I know there are a whole bunch of fans that don't want to hear this, but you look at everything about the way the NFL is structured to try and incentivize parity because they want more teams to be good to keep more fans interested. You look at everything about the TV ratings every year and how many of the top 100 shows of the year are all the NFL. The fact that the Pro Bowl still exists, we will watch football no matter what. Yep. So this notion that the NFL wants or needs the Chiefs or any other team to be better than everybody else for its business, for its bottom line here, it is ludicrous. It is patently absurd, and it ignores everything that we know about our lust for football as a country.
There is supposed apathy about this Super Bowl because they just played 2 years ago, and the Chiefs are going for their third straight. The commercials cost the most. It's going to be sold out. It's going to be viewed by as many as who have watched it before because it is. As you said, it's football. And the league makes too much money to try and fit something into one hole, and say we just want the Chiefs to be great. To me, I agree. It makes zero sense, but there are so many conspiracy theorists out there.
I did see that ticket prices have been plummeting this week because they were so high, and now they're tumbling down. So now's the time to buy.
Now's the time. Buy low.
Get into Super Bowl licks.
Come on and get your licks in.
Oh, my God.
Let's go.
The stories write themselves. And speaking of the stories, we will get to big questions for each team's coming up here in the next couple of segments as we actually start to look ahead a little bit more at the matchups in this game, hone in on that. Obviously, having Jeff around, Cam around, guys that have certainly coached at a high level, played at a high level, and get a look at these situations will be super helpful there. But did want to kind of get to the close of one situation that led off Super Bowl week and is still sending shockwaves everywhere, to the point about Jesse. Conspiracy theories were given new life when all of a sudden you had to try and make sense of Luka Doncic being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers in the middle of the night here. And we finally got, Jesse, to the point where we get to see Luka, LeBron, everyone talk about this.
Yeah, Le Luka, the new nickname for what's going on in LA. Le Luka. So we have some sound. Here's Luka wondering what day it was when he got the call about the trade.
Everybody was surprised, so you can imagine how surprised I was. I was almost asleep, so when I got a call, I had to check it was April 1st. I didn't really believe it at first, and it was a bit shock. It was hard moments for me. It was home, so it was really hard moments for me, especially the first day. But as I said, I get to play in the greatest club in the world.
My man thought it was April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
He was so shooketh. Also, he looks like a little boy in his
He
sweater.
looks like he's going to boarding school.
With his,
this sweater he does.
Mommy and Daddy are sending him to boarding school in Switzerland.
He's got to go away from home. He's leaving home.
It does.
A home that he just bought, right? Didn't he just buy a home?
He closed on a home in Dallas last week for $15 million.
Boy, he's going to be paying a lot of agent fees.
Yeah.
Closing and then selling.
Yep.
Wow.
Grand opening, grand closing there. But despite that, Dad, hearing him and seeing the edge that he seemed to talk about his approach to this with, everyone looking at the situation, acknowledging the motivation. I thought interesting and of note, LeBron James, when he got asked about this after the Lakers game the other night, said, obviously, that he was shocked, all that, but he also said, he's like, hey, Luka's been one of my favorite players for a long time. I'm here, and, quote, if I had concerns, I would waive my no-trade clause and get up out of here. So made sure to remind everyone, I think, in the lead-up to the deadline, as his name has been one oft-talked about, that I'm the captain now. So we kind of heard the affirmations from everybody that we're in it now, we're going to do this together, and it sounds like, according to ESPN's Dave McMenamin, that Luka is trending towards a return Saturday against the Pacers in Los Angeles after missing the last 18 games with that calf injury.
Yeah, on Christmas Day, I mean, Anthony Davis hasn't played yet since the oblique. So you traded for 2 All-NBA guys who hadn't been playing. And listen, I don't think LeBron was going anywhere. He'd been in L.A. I think he wants to retire. Lakers being the last team. His son's on the team, kind of bouncing back and forth. I don't think he was going to waive his no trade and try and go anywhere. It's
not even to play with Steph.
No. I still think there are so many questions and conspiracy theories, maybe not Jesse's conspiracy theory, but as to still there's so many why this happened. Again, Nico Harrison, the GM of the Mavericks, said we have a 3 to 4 year window of contending with Kyrie and Anthony Davis. So they are obviously playing it for the now, and I don't know how many people believe that as a 32-year-old, a couple of 32-year-olds, and again, a big man at 32 is add a few more years to it. So I don't know if they have that long, and I don't know if they're going to contend. But you have season ticket holders who have canceled their season tickets, and the Mavs are refunding them and having their reps tell them, hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Your frustration's going to end when we win. And Nico he has tied himself to this. I mean, his job, without question, depends on what happens in the next couple of years.
Again, unless he is a puppet for what is going on above him in the ownership level, and if he was actually allowed to make this decision, and it really just is this confidence that borders on hubris, you do put your own job on the line in a way that would not. He could have done the easy thing and just coasted there with Luka, had a guy that everyone agrees is a great player, is going to give you an opportunity, stuck around, try and build around him, probably keep that job for a lot longer than all of a sudden if you're going and taking swings like this that immediately put you on the chopping block. So that one, fascinating from their side, as the Dallas Mavericks, like you said, they took out a guy, and I saw Bomani, who's going to join us later, say there are very few players on their own in the NBA that are a draw enough for people to come and buy their tickets just to see them. Like we think about it all the time with Steph Curry when he was getting ready, going through his best seasons, people showing up early to watch him go play. Obviously, LeBron's been that for years, Kevin Durant. But Luka was one of those guys, given how that he played. And so now Dallas willingly let that go, put that away, and sent it walking from their organization. On the other side for the Lakers, I was thinking about something this morning, and I saw Claire DeLune, friend of the program here who covers the Lakers in Los Angeles. What a year one for J.J. Redick. Like, you think about that guy going into a situation, never having coached in the NBA before, now all of a sudden going to coach a team with LeBron James, who he had just done a podcast with, having to go and do the balancing act of LeBron's son now being on the team here, LeBron injured for a while and away from the team. People are going to be going over everything you do with a fine-tooth comb already, and now you finally got the team playing pretty well in this stretch. You're fourth in the Western Conference. Things are looking good. And you now have your organization go and trade for one of the 3-4 best players in the NBA that's now in your backyard. There is always pressure on a LeBron James coach team, Dad, as we well know. We have heard from Kevin Love and former players that have been around LeBron, and they say, you think you know pressure until you're on the team with that guy. But now for J.J. Redick in year one, the math changes even more with the addition of this guy.
But quite honestly, I think the pressure's off. I think they got Luka for the next decade. So I don't think it's in a win now. It used to be win now because you have LeBron, and he only has a couple of years left. So get all the things you can get from him. Now it's going to be about building around Luka, knowing LeBron's not going to be here. So Nico Harrison, the GM for the Mavs, is saying we got a 3 to 4 year window, which is probably a 1 to 2 year window. So you probably squeeze that window. So I think the more pressure's on him, because they were just, it's not like they were 6th in the conference and looking to jump up. They were in the finals last year. So you need to at least equal that or win the title. He gave him 3 to 4 years. I think it's 1 to 2 years, where for the Lakers it was a year to year with LeBron and who do you build around him, to now We got the next, hopefully, 6, 7, 8, 10 years with Luka. So I think the pressure is off.
Well, it's
JJ.
a win now for LeBron. Because he's probably and then it's like, JJ, if you want to keep your job, win now because LeBron can get you fired.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, all of this, anytime there's a new coaching situation, or I should say a new player like that introduced, this was the Chicago Bears situation in the NFL. When you got a player, everyone is going to they're going to look at the coach and say, all right, we need to figure out if we want you here to be the one dealing with this person. And listen, Luka Doncic, who there's been a lot said about him recently, Dad, he does not seem like the easiest personality to get along with necessarily if you're behind the scenes there. And so for J.J. Redick, you got a bunch of talent here, but we know in the NBA, the coaches are as expendable as any league in North American sports.
But if you want to win now, I mean, they unless they make another move, they just tied one of J.J. Redick's arms behind his back. You have no big man at all.
I mean, I think they're going to fix that before the deadline.
I would think so. They have a day, but I mean, you're certainly not getting anybody to fill Anthony Davis's shoes. So are you at the end game going to be better? Now you probably are because you have Luka on the team. Now you just got to figure out between Luka and LeBron, how it's all going to work. Kind of like when LeBron went to Miami with Bosh and Dwayne Wade, how they kind of acquiesced to one another until they figured it out. I mean, Luka's used to having the ball in his hand, and you have Austin Reeves and LeBron who are used to having the ball in their hand. Now I think LeBron has learned how to acquiesce better, but they got to figure that out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Austin Reeves is still a part of this entire equation as they approach the trade deadline, given the defensive concerns, given what he might mean for another team as they try and recoup players. We can get into more of that with Bomani Jones coming up later. But coming up next, we've talked about press conference sound concern with officials. Let's concern ourselves with the Philadelphia Eagles and what they're going to need to do to topple the Giants next year on Gojo and Golic.
Super Week on DraftKings Network is brought to you by DoorDash. Get all your game day faves delivered.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic. As we inch closer to the big game, there's nothing but microphones and cameras in everybody's faces, okay? So let's take a listen to Nick Sirianni on his QB, Jalen Hurts.
We all have these moments in our life where we have adversity. And again, adversity is not going to hide from, it's coming after everybody. No one's hiding from it. And it's about how you respond. It's about how you react. It's about embracing that adversity, knowing that when you do that, it can help make you better. And so look at Jalen, he's such a winner. He's won everywhere he's went. That moment, and now he's starting in his second Super Bowl.
All right, Jalen Hurts is a winner is what we're hearing. Let's see if he can be a winner.
It's the line we've heard about Jalen Hurts forever, though, is he's won everywhere he's been, even though we know that road has hardly looked clean everywhere he's been when it comes to that, between being benched in the last half of the national championship game Alabama ultimately wins, having to transfer there, coming into Philadelphia early on, and then Dad sort of making this Josh Allen-like climb up the hill of improving every year to the Super Bowl 2 years ago where he plays his best football. It's been so fascinating to me to watch the turn over the last 2 years where this was a guy that looked like one of the ascending stars at that point. The Eagles give him that $250 million contract as a reward. And it seems like after last year, in a season where so many people looked at the Eagles situation and did blame Nick Sirianni and did blame the coordinators, Jalen Hurts has kind of been the one that's carried that over into this year, where now, once Saquon and this running game took center stage, it does seem like a lot of people look at Jalen Hurts as lesser and knocked down the way that we view him in the ranks of quarterbacks.
So Jalen Hurts outplays his best player on the field in Super Bowl 2 years ago. Best player on the field, right? And they lose. So he gets a Super Bowl quarterback loss on his resume, which, again, to put it on quarterbacks, I think is ridiculous, but that's what we do.
But he has an appearance.
Exactly. But if the Eagles win this game and win it the way they've been winning this year, Jalen Hurts is going to go through again not getting credit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be, well, they have Saquon Barkley in the running game. That's how they've won all year, and that's what they're going to do. And I don't know how much Jalen cares. I don't know how much the team cares. If they're putting on Super Bowl rings, who gives a damn what everybody else thinks? But maybe it does stick in their craw. I don't know. But if the Eagles are going to win, they're going to probably win the way they've been winning, and it will be behind the running attack.
I mean, I think based on and evidenced by the coach finally let me out of my straitjacket comments, he at least seems to care a little bit.
He does.
Right? Like,
yes.
And you get that players all have an ego to get to this level and play at that level. Ego's not a four-letter word. It's almost a requirement to be able to make it to this point, especially in Jalen Hurts' case where you are very talented, but you're not the most talented player. You are someone that's got very experience at the high level, but you're by no means and were no means the franchise must-have guy here, or else you would have been a first-round draft pick. And so there's plenty of push and pull evidence by that. Dad, in terms of what his impact on the game has to be if they're going to win, we know they want to win handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley. We know how good he's been there. But what is Jalen Hurts going to have to provide against a defense that from the neck up probably gives you more than most in the NFL?
Well, listen, I mean, in the NFC Championship game, he was dropping some dimes. He had some great accuracy. He was
did.
The ball.
He also got called out by Tom Brady a bunch for holding the ball and not throwing into windows that he thought he should.
Right. Yeah, he did. He thought he would show the replay and saw where A.J. Brown had the opening and that Jalen wouldn't throw it. Listen, I don't know where Jalen is in his own head. I think he thinks he obviously can pass this team to a championship, but if they have to, everybody says if they have to pass 35, 40 times, they're not going to win. That also might mean that they're down. If they're down a couple scores halfway through the fourth quarter and have to go away from Saquon, can they do it? Well, they have better receivers than Kansas City. They don't have a better quarterback, obviously, than Kansas City. Listen, Jalen's just got to do what he's best at. He's one of three quarterbacks that has thrown the ball outside the numbers more often than the middle of the field. In the playoffs, he's 27 of 34 on passes outside the numbers with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. That's where he throws the ball best. So I would imagine that's what Kellen Moore is going to have him do, but also you have to understand Steve Spagnuolo. He knows stats, and he watches film as well and knows where the favorite spots are for a quarterback, and Spagnuolo's got a lot of success de-coordinating against great players.
Yeah, I think the other part of this that people were so worried about going into this game as it relates to Jalen Hurts, who, when you look at the stats when he's under pressure, plummet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
When Jalen Hurts is under pressure, out of 37 quarterbacks that are pressured, have been pressured and qualify for this, he is 37th in quarterback success rate, 37th out of 37 in EPA per attempt, 33rd out of 37 in sack rate, and 32nd out of 37 in yards per attempt. And we saw in that NFC Championship game, probably the biggest bit of news for the Eagles going into this, Cam Jurgens set to play with no restrictions in this game. It sounds like Landon Dickerson ready to play after dealing with the knee injury that looked like it had him in considerable amount of pain. But, Dad, that was the first thing I thought of, because you saw the interior pressures from a Washington Commanders defense that has a lot of work it needs to do. Get home early and often when you had Landon Dickerson in there, because when you mix up the bag and have a guy that's not used to being in the middle and running the show the way Cam Jurgens has all this year, I get he's new this season, but all this year you saw the cracks start to show up in some of the protection errors, and so that getting solidified in front of Jalen's going to go a long way, because clearly we have seen when he is forced to move around under pressure, not nearly as effective a quarterback.
And he was sacked. As a team, they were sacked 45 times. Jalen was sacked 38 times. So, you know, they have given up some pressure. They seem to be a better run-blocking unit than a pass-blocking unit. Now, is some of that on Jalen for holding onto the ball? As Tom Brady said, you know, when he's got the guy, he's not letting go of the ball, so now he's hanging onto the ball and giving a chance for the rush to get there. But, again, you read those stats, and, again, Steve Spagnuolo knows those stats, and he is the king of disguise. But also let me reiterate, we all talk about that last play, that last blitz against Josh Allen in the AFC title game of what he calls. And as I've always said, you can have great coaches, but you have to have great players execute to disguise a defense. And we did it a lot when Jeff Fisher's here. We did it a lot in our defense in Philly. You have to have players that can disguise. I mean, you had a corner coming free on that blitz, and one of the reasons is he didn't give it away. You know, a lot of times the offense is going to try and do a count or a clap or a hut or whatever to try and get the defense to start to move. So then now the quarterback's, okay, they're disguising, they're going to move to this, that. You got to give credit to the players on the field for disguising, for not giving it away. And that's why Josh is calling slide left and the blitz is coming from the right. You get a couple of free rushers.
Yeah, it's a complete difference in styles making fights when it comes to what the Eagles offense is getting ready to face against that Chiefs defense that, to your point, has players that understand what they need to do in the body of that system. On the other side for the Eagles, you've got guys, and it's such an interesting conversation yesterday. Gerald McCoy, who was on the show with us, I was talking to him later on, and he talked about the other side, the Eagles defense getting set to go up against Patrick Mahomes in this offense. And we talked with him about Jalen Carter and the great job that he's done. And he pointed out, Jalen Carter doesn't even know what he's doing yet.
Yeah.
He said, he's like, when you watch this guy, and he's like, it's not going to show up to the layperson, but Gerald McCoy, who was a high-performing defensive tackle in the NFL for a long time, said the stuff he's doing is off instinct. It's off feel. It's off what he knows. He's not picking this up and noticing it, because if he is, you'd see him change certain things about how he's doing this. And so I think you've got an Eagles defense where, Dad, I think that's kind of the overall tone and tenor with that group. They're not a group that has to do as much. They're not a group that has to move around as much or disguise as much, because they've got incredibly talented players that are able to go out there and play a little bit more like that. It's not to say that they're not playing disciplined or assignment sound. Vic Fangio came in and immediately seems to have drilled that home, but it's a lot different in terms of what he asks them to do and what needs to be done because of the way they've structured that defense and how talented the dudes are across the board.
Yeah, it's basically a four-man rush there. They'll bring pressure. Vic Fangio occasionally will bring pressure. But listen, Vic Fangio has had a tough time figuring out Pat Mahomes. He's 0-8. He's 0-8 against Pat Mahomes when he was with Denver and with Miami. Now, the offenses in those games, the offenses of Vic Fangio's when he was taking care of the defense, did not score well. They scored 6-3, 16-16, 9, 24-14, and 7 points. So the offense didn't give him much. But he has lost to Patrick Mahomes 8 times out of 8 shots.
Yeah, It's not gone well. Those are also ones that's an overall team stat, but
exactly.
It just reinforces Patrick Mahomes is a very difficult guy to beat. So, Dad, if the Eagles defense is going to do that, what's going to be the key for them?
Well, I mean, the key for them is obvious. Is quite honestly, it's making Patrick Mahomes stay in the pocket. And obviously he can beat you from the pocket. Sure. But he can beat you even more rolling out, making kind of those crazy plays. Obviously, coverage on Kelce. Kelce has been a monster in the postseason. And Worthy is not letting Worthy. The one thing Mahomes has done, especially in the postseason, is his passing downfield has been less. It's been more behind the line or close to the line of scrimmage. He's been getting rid of the ball quicker and letting the receivers, especially a Worthy, get yards after the catch. So it's going to come down to tackling on defense. I say this a lot of time when I'm calling games because we've seen the NFL go to quicker passes, right, and get the ball in the hands of their athletes, and you turn it into one-on-one tackling situations. Who's going to win? The receiver, the gifted receiver, or the DB who's going to make the tackle? And that's what Kansas City has done more lately, either quick passes to the outside or to Travis Kelce, who, again, has had a bigger postseason, but especially a guy like Worthy, you get him on the jet sweep or you get him on the quick pass, and you get the ball in their hands. We've seen more of that, and you can't pressure as much on Patrick Mahomes on quick passes. You can almost get a free pass rush, and he's going to get the ball out in a quick pass situation. So you have to be able to tackle right away, put them in. Always a key for the defense is second and third down. Is it 2nd and 7+, 3rd and 7+? Is it 2nd and 5 or less, where the playbook is opened up? Is it 3rd and 3 or less? Now the playbook is really opened up. What situations do you put the offense in? It's not rocket science that you want to get them in 3rd and long, so you kind of know that they're going to pass. But the key to a 3rd and long is 1st and 2nd down, and how well you play on 1st and 2nd down. And that's where KC really and Andy love to strike quick.
Yeah, I think the quick passes have been a coup for them for most of the back half of the season. And so for Philadelphia, the good news for you is you don't have to send extra often. You haven't really had to. This is it reminds me so much of the defenses you see from Iowa in college, where they're going to kind of sit there. They're going to be base nickel most of the time. They're going to rush 4, and they're going to come up and tackle. They're going to sit back there, and they're going to come up and tackle. And the way that Cooper DeJean is coming and quitting like that, Blankenship and the guys in the secondary and that safety room, certainly Zach Bond in the linebacker level, because you don't have to allocate extra resources going towards the quarterback all that often, it allows you to have more guys ready to rally and tackle. So just structurally, the way the Eagles sit on defense, they're in a much better position than a lot of their peers that have had to go and try and generate pressure differently. The key in this game, though, is you talk about having to line up, get the Chiefs in bad position at some point, and this is what we talked about with Gerald McCoy yesterday. At some point when it's an obvious situation, obvious pass, obvious run, what's going to happen? And to me, the edge guys, Nolan Smith, the edge group for the Philadelphia Eagles, that's the advantage you have against the Chiefs' offensive line. You want to go inside to Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, be my guest. You know, Joe Tooney used to live there and now is on the perimeter, but that interior is where the strength of this team has been. And so Jalen Carter, those guys, that's going to be good on good. That's going to be a ton of fun to watch with him, with Jordan Davis on the inside against Creed Humphrey. All that stuff's going to rock. But the spot where everyone else has been able to get over and make life difficult on the Chiefs is the spot right now that's been trending in a really positive direction for the Eagles in the postseason, but wasn't necessarily where we thought was the dynamic rush point for this defense year long.
Yeah, and for the Eagles, listen, Saquon Barkley has been successful attacking outside the tackles, so that's obviously where they're gonna go. But again, Spagnuolo knows that. So the matchups are so much fun to watch. A Trey Smith, the right guard, against Jalen Carter, the D tackle for Philly. I mean, just now again, Jalen will move around some, and Chris Jones will certainly move around some. He'll be on Mekhi Becton. He'll be on Lane Johnson, Mailata probably some as well, but mostly he stays on the defense of left side, I believe. Some of the matchups on the D-line, the game within the game is going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it is, I think, a year where now, especially for Philadelphia, there is confidence in your coordinators, especially, again, although Kellen Moore, a guy who's got that Saints job in the background of the periphery, if there is any slowdown of this Eagles offense, rest assured, people are going to start firing up the takes about Kellen Moore not being in where his feet are enough here, being distracted, and thinking too much about that Saints job. So fascinating to look at all those matchups, especially from the Eagles' perspective, as again, the burden of proof is on them. Both teams have been here recently. Only one of these teams has actually won games here recently, and that's the team wearing red. Coming up next, we'll dive into more on just how that team in red has continued their dominance on this league. Next on Gojo and Golic.
Super Week on DraftKings Network is brought to you by DoorDash. Get all your game day faves delivered.
Thanks, Trey Wingo. Welcome back to Gojo and Golic here on the DraftKings Network. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield. Staring out at a radio row that has gotten very crowded very early this week. I have been stunned, Dad, at how many folks we saw yesterday already.
I was amazed at how crowded it got yesterday. I thought that would be for today. It would start to get crowded, certainly Thursday and Friday. Because you hear now, because we used to do this actually at ESPN. For the first few years of Mike and Mike, we went for the whole week. And then we were like, well, Monday and Tuesday, we'll come down Wednesday. And I think decent amount of people do that. But boy, oh boy, it was, you're right, just packed yesterday. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like.
People wanted to get in time for the media party.
For the media party.
Yeah.
They heard there was going to be more alcohol.
Big draw, yeah.
The glazed beignets, they call to me like the Green Goblin mask. But
oh my God.
It is the peak of yesterday. We were standing over here after our show and saw our buddy Zach Martin, Dallas Cowboys offensive guard, guy who at some point is going to retire and probably be one of the 3 best offensive guards of all time, over at the bounty thing, throwing paper towels through targets. That is Super Bowl week.
Things you never expected to see. A guy, and I don't mean it in a mean way, but probably still has his first dollar.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably still has the pants and outfit from draft night.
One of the great guys.
Although his wife's done a better job of dressing him lately. Shout out to his wife, Morgan.
What a great guy, but you're not kidding. I never expected to see him doing an appearance at a Super Bowl.
It is the incredible draw of Radio Row here at the Super Bowl to try and go out here and grab that net and catch those beautiful butterfly dollars that are hanging out there. Speaking of dollars, by the way, do you guys see the most ridiculous college football headline of all time? If there is any reminder why this sport is such a rabid following and what it can draw as a result, it was this headline from On3 yesterday. A new Georgia State Senate bill would exempt NIL compensation received by college athletes from state income tax.
My God.
If it was passed here. Georgia institutions are already allowed to pay athletes directly for name, image, and likeness. And, Dad, we know the rules got drawn up quickly. They were all different in different states. But now Georgia, if this passes, think about what this would mean. People would actually vote into law something that would just allow this section of the population at State U, this school that everybody in the state loves, to go out here and be the one group not paying state income tax here. If there's any reminder of it just means more, it's right on the page there.
Yeah, because Texas already doesn't have a state income tax, so they're already ahead of the game there.
Well,
It's Tennessee, Florida, and Texas.
Yeah,
so they're like, dang, we gotta be able to compete with these schools.
Yeah, so how can we do that? Yeah, let's take the state tax of 5.39% off and let them keep that money. If they could do something about the federal tax, they would.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you want change in meaningful policy, you just need to convince lawmakers that it will affect your college football team's ability to recruit, and you got a decent chance. And that is a dark reality that we face, but it's the reality nonetheless here. As Dad, now with the revenue share and everything else becoming a part of this, it is going to continue to be moves like this of more teams trying to find an edge. And to Jesse's point, it's not a coincidence that the team Georgia faced in the SEC championship, having this natural advantage in their state, is probably something that prompts you to think long and hard about this.
And the governor of Georgia is trying to protect the players from the NCAA as well. The governor, Brian Kemp, signed an executive order in September prohibiting the NCAA from taking adverse action against an institution for compensating an athlete for NIL.
What does that mean? It's such a blanket statement.
It means you're not going to tell our players they can't do a damn thing.
You're not messing with our kids getting their money.
Yeah.
They're going to get to keep their money.
One thing about coming to Georgia is you're going to get that bag, and we are going to legally protect your right to do that. The arms race is insane.
That is amazing.
We've seen overall, it still nets us a lot of the same teams doing very well. Georgia has been one of the premier players in the sport and will continue to be one of the premier players in the sport. But how you go about doing that, it's the Red Queen theory and evolution. You got to keep running long on that treadmill to basically stay in that same place, and that's what they're in the middle of doing right now. What we're in the middle of here is actually something that the Georgia Bulldog fans missed out on here, trying to see the Chiefs go for the three-peat right now, the three-peat that Pat Riley has famously trademarked, and even though he didn't actually three-peat himself, a team like the Kansas City Chiefs may have to pay royalties to old Pat Riley. The Notre Dame men's lacrosse team is going to have to pay them to him this spring when they go and stomp everyone into oblivion with the most talented roster in the sport for 3 straight years. So that's going to be exciting to think about.
Pat Riley has trademarked 6 different variations of the term three-peat, right? And he did it after the Bull or his Lakers, when he was with L.A., won a second championship. And they ended up losing a third championship to Detroit. So he did not get the three-peat. But the Bulls have gotten a three-peat. The post-Riley Lakers gotten a three-peat. The Yankees have gotten a three-peat. So and he and the Chiefs have come to an agreement, which means money. I'm sure money coming to Pat Riley, and Pat Riley gives it to his foundation and such. But still, I mean, wow.
Yeah, it kind of cracks me up because it seems like one of those statements you shouldn't really be able to trademark. Like
I'm always amazed what you can get away with.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Well, it's just like a colloquial saying.
Yeah,
three-peat. Like who knew?
He owns it, and 6 variations of it. So who's playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers?
Apparently, this was Patrick Mahomes yesterday, the Chiefs' star quarterback, talking about the prospect of the three-peat at media night. Take a listen.
I think it's just the guys that we have in our locker rooms have such an appreciation for the process and how hard it is to get to the Super Bowl. And so with that, we start from the beginning. We don't just rely on what got us there the year before. We really go back to ground zero, and we work our tail off just to be the best that we can be, and knowing that it's going to be a hard process. It's going to be a hard journey to get back to the Super Bowl. And so when you have a bunch of guys like that, it kind of fuels you to be the best you can be every single day.
It is funny to joke about the idea that, well, actually, it doesn't appear very hard because they've done it now 5 of the last 6 years. It appears to be like breathing air for the Kansas City Chiefs. It is their birthright to be in the Super Bowl. But Dad, obviously playing as long as you did and being around and seeing so many different things, you get an appreciation for it. I think that's why so many former players are unwilling to go down the rabbit hole of any of the conspiracy theory stuff, because they know how hard winning consistently is, and to do it that hard for that long is insane.
And I think a statement there that some people may not really believe is how he said you go back to zero at every offseason. And I'm sure there are people who think, well, you have Andy Reid, you have Travis Kelce, you have the core of that team. But every single team is never the same the next year. They're just not. You are basically breaking in new players. Maybe you have your core together, but you're breaking in new players. You are starting new every offseason. And that's the mentality that Mahomes, when they're in the Super Bowl as much as they have been, that's the mentality they have. You start fresh every year. Last year doesn't matter. You start fresh. You have new players. Xavier Worthy this year, for one. You have new guys that you have to break in. Sometimes new coaches, whether it's assistants or coordinators, that you have to break in. So it is actually a brand new team every year.
And I think some of the key differences, Dad, you mentioned offensively looking at this team. It is, hey, Xavier Worthy as this added element in the passing attack, as especially you've seen as of late, the motion guy, the gadget guy, the one that they can use to create space for others, if not himself. Where last year the story was Isaiah Pacheco, right? It was him as the tip of the spear of this rushing attack that all of a sudden was leading the charge for the Chiefs to go opposite that defense. So how has that changed their identity overall, Dad, in the way that you view this offense that people used to fear so much and what it poses now for a defense?
It's what I had talked about last segment. It's Pat Mahomes is shortening up his throws. It's getting the ball out quicker to the athletes to get the ball and get the yards after the catch, especially as Xavier Worthy. Again, whether it's a jet sweep or a quick pass, the slants to get yards after the catch, and that's going to be the job of the Eagles, is to stay up and to be able to make the tackle. They aren't living on the rush as much. They're living on the quick pass as much. So, again, that's a difference from this year to last year, and your ability to morph into something. And listen, that's Andy Reid. Yeah. I mean, let's understand Andy Reid's job in all of this. This dude is a walk-in Hall of Fame coach, and in my estimation is going to go down as the winningest coach of all time in the playoffs and all-time wins if he stays around long enough. What he designs, again, that last play on 3rd and 7, to have motion to trips, to figure out that it's man coverage, to have them all run crossing routes, to get a muddle of the defenders and offensive players, and leak Samaje Perine out and have his guy covering him caught up in the wall. I mean, it's just great to draw up plays, and that's what Andy does. I mean, he just figures it out.
He does, and the amount of guys they can call on in the depth of that offense, with Juju Smith-Schuster coming back and playing a prominent role for that team. Noah Gray in that tight end room alongside Travis Kelce and what he's meant to that team. That running back room, 3 deep with Kareem Hunt, Samaje Perine, and now Isaiah Pacheco since he's been back healthy. Having that many guys that can be ready in critical moments when they're not always getting the football. Like, Dad, that's the thing I have an appreciation for with skill players. You can go long stretches of the game not doing a damn thing.
Right.
Offensive, defensive line, every play something's happening for you. Every play you've got some physical hand-to-hand combat that's going on. There's a play for receivers where you're just running laps. You're going up and down the field. You might not get the ball. You might not get hit by anyone. Nothing will happen. And so the ability to stay locked in on that, if you're also in and out of the lineup, these guys, it is incredible. With the exception of, for the Kansas City Chiefs, we know Travis Kelce. And Jesse, he's sort of been the one through line in all this for the Chiefs offense. The book on them for years was, if you want to stop this team, you have got to go and cut off the head of the snake first. And that was Travis Kelce as a part of the passing attack. A little bit longer in the tooth now, and the tenor around his conversation has changed a lot as media days have gone on.
Yeah, I mean, he's 35, which old for football, not old for the earth. But everyone's like, look at him trotting out their oldest player. Yeah, he's got a successful podcast, right? He's dating the most influential woman in the world. So now the questions to him on media day are things like, when are you going to retire?
Hopefully still playing football. I love doing this. I love coming into work every day, and I feel like I still got a lot of good football left in me, but we'll see what happens. I know I've been setting myself up for other opportunities in my life, and that's always been the goal, knowing that football only lasts for so long. You got to find a way to get into another career, into another, profession, and I've been doing that in my off seasons, but for the most part, I plan on being a Kansas City Chief and playing football.
Okay, so no plans to retire, but yeah, I think he's done a pretty good job of setting himself up for something on the side.
And that's the key in when I do get a chance to talk to younger players, guys that are still playing now, and they ask me about the future. That's exactly what I say. I say, get set now, because the doors are open while you're playing to set yourself up. Now, Travis is in a different stratosphere than a lot of other players, but there's opportunities to take advantage of while you're playing, because that's when you're relevant. If you're not a Travis Kelce or a star, a normal kind of foot soldier type player, and you retire, it's basically done. Now you're starting over unless you have started building something in the offseason. So again, this is away from football, and this is advice for current players is, you do what you're doing in the offseason to set yourself up for post-football, because it doesn't last forever. You have to understand that. It could end. As I said, the league, the norm is the league retiring you, like what happened to me. I got retired from the league because nobody called. And that's the norm. It's not you can walk off under your own power and decide when you want to retire. So that's why you kind of need to set yourself up in the off seasons.
Yeah, and he's done as good a job of that as anyone. It's been a pointed effort by him, but him making it very clear, Andy Reid making it very clear, we intend to be back here next year. And that, to me, that is always the most interesting conversation with this Chiefs team is when it's going to happen. Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, you knew we're going to have each other for a long time. With Patrick Mahomes, we always knew, based on where Andy was in his career, there's going to be a second chapter that he's got to write without Andy Reid. And I think if you're the rest of the NFL, if you're the fan bases that are all wondering when the hell is this going to end, that's at least the spot where you go, all right, that's the opportunity. When all of a sudden that change happens, you don't have that guy, as you pointed out, not only great head coach, but great offensive play caller pulling the strings. That's the opening that everyone's going to have to try and capitalize on.
And that's one thing we don't know. I know Andy Reid, but I don't know him to know how much more football he has in him. He's 66 years old, but we're seeing a 74-year-old in Pete Carroll back in coaching. As I said, I don't know what Andy's motives are. He's going to be the all-time playoff winningest coach ahead of Bill Belichick. He needs, I think, 3 or 4 to pass him, and he's 47 away from Don Shula. That would be, again, 4 years averaging 12 wins a year. Does he want to hang around till he's 70? I don't know that, but I think he would definitely have it in him to be able to be the greatest or the winningest coach of all time.
There are hopefully enough Hawaiian shirts and cheeseburgers in Kansas City to be able to keep coaxing the big guy back every year, because I'm not sure a change that anyone in Kansas City wants to see any time soon. Coming up next, we're going to change over to hour number 2 here. We've got a banner performance by the former MVP making his return in Philadelphia, and a reunion of player and coach coming up next here on the set on Gojo and Golic at Radio Row.
Welcome back to Gojo and Golic live from Radio Row in New Orleans. Last night in the NBA, Joel Embiid played in his first game in a little over a month. The MVP big man has been dealing with knee and foot issues for the majority of the season, calling them extremely frustrating. Now, hoping the worst is behind him. Embiid dropped a 29-point triple-double in a win, 118-116 against the Dallas Mavericks, minus you-know-who, Luka Doncic. Okay, Embiid notched 29 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists as the Sixers look to climb the ranks of the Eastern Conference. We look to continue climbing your ranks in hour 2. Some great guests coming your way. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Radio Row here. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., and Jesse Cofield. We come together. We form Gojo and Golic here. We are live for the next hour coming to you from New Orleans, the site of Super Bowl 59 here. We thought Jeff Fisher was going to come by and see you, and apparently he told our reps he never wants to see you again, so he's not coming on the show.
So I knew, listen, Jeff and I get along well. I love Jeff. But it was... Yeah, there are points in a game, and it's one of my core memories. It was a little thing. And so when I was in Philadelphia, Jeff Fisher was the D coordinator. Buddy Ryan was the head coach. And we had on the D line Reggie White, Clyde Simmons at ends, and then Jerome Brown, Mike Pitts in the middle, and myself. And Mike Pitts, Jerome, and I rotated around. And so there was a game, and I was standing. I wasn't my turn to be in to start the series, so I was standing next to Jeff and right by Buddy. And during the drive, Jerome jumped off sides, and Buddy Ryan has kind of a quick temper.
Sure.
And he's like, oh, and he starts swearing. He's like, get him out of there. Go get Golic in there. Get him out of there. And Jeff Fisher almost was like, no. He gave this look. He gave this look, and I was standing right next to Jeff.
Oh, no.
I was standing right next to Jeff, and Jeff was like to Buddy, well, let's let him work through it. And I knew it was like, no, I don't want to take Jerome. And you know what? I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Certain point of the game, it's
but
like, hey.
it was just this kind of. I was standing there ready. I just went.
Oh man!
Yeah. Okay.
Like I kind of knew it inside me. I knew Jerome was a better player, but boy, there it was right there.
You have it spelled out certain ways over your career.
Yeah.
That's where it becomes abundantly clear. It's like, hey,
it was just instantaneous, a bit of panic on Jeff's face. Like, no, let's keep Jerome in the game.
Go grab me a water. Help Jerome off.
You're not in.
Yeah, that was. It's amazing of things I've forgotten, things I remember, and what I do remember, and what I have forgotten, and that's something that I will always remember.
Your villain origin story.
The human condition is wired to remember the moments that break our spirit.
That's exactly
and
right.
That is certainly one of them. So, Dad, allow me to uplift your spirit right now and present you with some news that apparently came down here, courtesy of the NFL and a decision they made. Racism's over.
Oh,
what?
The
there you
NFL
go.
managed
Wow.
to end racism. It is instead putting Choose Love in the back of the end zones at the Superdome for Super Bowl 59 in an effort to encourage the country after a series of tragedies. Obviously, the last 6 weeks have been hell in so many ways. January felt like the longest month on record, and it was unfortunately one nightmare after another. And so the NFL going that route, it takes all of us had been stenciled in the other end zone since 2020. You had all the other ones in there. But I think everyone would tell you that was a time where we saw big brands like the NFL searching for ways to appear like they were on the right side of history with a lot of these things. I don't know if a lot of players, coaches, or anyone involved certainly believed that the NFL putting that in the back of the end zone was doing its part to help combat racism in this country, considering there was an AP poll put out surveying 65 black players from 25 black teams on the topic of black head coaches in the NFL, and 36% were discouraged or disappointed in the number of black NFL head coaches. We know a league where about 53% of the players are African American, 22%, and probably going to be 19 if Kellen Moore does take the head coaching job for the Saints. Head coaches in the NFL are black. So, Dad, still something that players are looking up and going, hey, yeah, we understand that this is a league that looks more like us than it does like the white coaches that we see, and yet there are coaches that look like us struggling to get those opportunities.
Yeah, and the league again has tried to minimize this with the Rooney Rule, which has really been an abject failure.
Yes.
So they're still trying to figure out ways. It's hopefully they will. I mean, who knows? But yes, they've ended racism, so it's good to know that they've done that.
I will say, like, rare dub. Roger Goodell is someone that's always routinely skewered anytime he takes the podium here, but he got asked the other day in light of recent policy changes and things going on at the government level, high above all of us, about the NFL's diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, and he said, "This is about us finding the best candidates. We are going to continue going about business in that regard the way that we did," and I thought that meant a lot to have the commissioner of, again, the most popular North American sports league coming out at a time where DEI has been turned into a four-letter word by a certain group in the country, for him to say, no, this is never about plugging people into places they don't deserve to be. It's an acknowledgement that for a long time we have done things in a way that has kept those people out of these positions for the wrong reasons, and now it's about opening that up and making sure that people from all different race, sexual orientations, genders, backgrounds have an opportunity for these jobs, because you got good people in those spots here. It's not like they're underqualified.
They're as qualified or more. It's exactly right. It's just about giving them the opportunity. And one other note for the game: the President Trump is going to go to the game. He's the first sitting president, and this has nothing to do. Don't start Republican, Democrat. Don't start. It's just the fact the president. It doesn't matter what side is going to the game. It's the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl. It is going to be security hell. It is going to be, I mean, last year I did a game for Westwood One in Philadelphia, and Jill Biden, the first lady, wasn't the president, the first lady came to the game in Philadelphia. And, I mean, it took us an extra 2 hours. Remember in the beginning of the week I said how it affects me?
Yeah, the Super Bowl is about my father, none of the rest of you.
How it affects me?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't for Jill Biden to go to the Philly game. They closed certain streets again. It took us an extra 2 hours to get to the game. It's going to be crazy for the security on this and people that are driving to the game and getting it's going to be ridiculous.
I'm surprised they can even pull that off, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
they've had practice. Taylor Swift's been in a bunch of NFL games over the last couple of years.
But can you imagine whoever had to receive that phone call from the White
you
House?
had to just going,
They're
no
just like,
way.
okay, great, thank you so much.
Whoever had to receive that call from the league office, just screaming into the pillow, their knees buckled in the middle of Trader Joe's.
10 people dropped to their knees in the middle of the NFL offices.
And again, don't add us. It doesn't matter what side the president. It's just the fact the president, the first time a sitting president is attending the Super Bowl, and it is going to be crazy.
And you know what? I think he's rooting for the Chiefs because he did tweet after they won, or not tweet, he truth socialed, whatever that's called. He truth socialed something, and he was like, congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs on their win, like those amazing MAGA people who voted for me. So he really,
you wonder.
He's aligning himself.
Wonder. Does he want a picture with T Swift?
No.
No, yeah. Oh, God, no.
No.
Oh, no.
She endorsed Kamala. And
I know.
He
Dad.
wants a picture with Brittany Mahomes.
Okay. Well, she's going to be with Taylor Swift.
Nah, are they?
There's a whole rabbit hole we can go down there, but no, I can promise you the least likely picture to be taken at Super Bowl 59 is the one that you just described.
I spoke before thinking on
No, I mean, he probably wants it, yes, but he's not going to get it.
Yeah, no, it's going to have to be back to AI for that to happen, but not going to be the case there. But yeah, you're right. I was at, I think, a college football playoff game. It might have been the national championship, and I feel like Trump, I forget if he was the president at the time or just, running, but was there. And it is amazing what it does to game. And at a time right now where New Orleans is already a city that is between the NFL and this city, what it went through with the terrorist attacks around the Sugar Bowl and the night of New Year's Eve, you've seen being around the city. Even now, I mean, again, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are really tame days on any Super Bowl site.
And the police presence
is
amazing.
Every block.
Yes.
There is a cop car on every block. When you go down to Bourbon Street again, where unfortunately the terrorist attack that involved a driver in a pickup truck going down Bourbon Street when that happened, the massive roadblocks that are up on all of those streets that have been installed since then, it is already difficult to move in ways. That is not a complaint. That is an acknowledgement that this is necessary.
Exactly.
And that as we near Sunday, and now you factor that in over the top, and that's something that, quite honestly, for the teams and how they get ready to move all this, another variable that you've got to account for in the way that they're going to have to go around game day travel, but certainly for fans, everyone else that are coming in to go to this game here. I can tell you right now, if you are a person that is not yet out in New Orleans, whatever time you have built in transit for everything,
my gosh,
double it.
You need more.
Triple it.
You need more time.
The limit does not exist with this now at the helm of this entire conversation and the way that it changes the flow here. So that's going to be more of the situation here. Dad, Bomani Jones going to join us in about 5 minutes here, and we've got plenty to discuss with him on this game, certainly, but also with what's going on in the NBA. And now as we go forward and get closer to the NBA trade deadline, we already had one big move happen, and the biggest one. Nothing's going to top Luka Doncic getting traded at this point, but last night we started to get a little bit of tidbits here. Kevin Durant, Sun star forward, downgraded to doubtful ahead of the Thunder matchup, where he is 26 points shy of 30,000 for his career, which would have been a cool full circle moment with Oklahoma City. Maybe not so much for the folks in OKC. The Suns say he's dealing with an ankle sprain. There's a lot of people wondering if this has any connection to rumors swirling around the trade deadline. As we know, Jimmy Butler and the Suns was a conversation people were having for a while before we left that off to the side for grander ambitions, De'Aaron Fox, the other trades that
for actual trades that would affect the team and how well they're going to do.
Dad, now all of a sudden this Suns team and Matt Ishbia, who, listen, since he's taken over the team, has come in and made big sweeping moves. Sounds like this could be another one of looking at this old roster that they thought they were going to build around Kevin Durant and saying, we'll go with another direction.
Is the Jimmy Butler to Phoenix off? Because he was going to go play with Durant. Now Durant would be gone, but they'd replace Durant with another old guy in Jimmy Butler if he went to Phoenix. I wonder if anything's going to happen with Jimmy Butler at all in what started out as the biggest soap opera there was, and really the only thing we had been talking about as far as the trade deadline because of the soap opera with he and Pat Riley, and then we had two really good trades that affected the teams. Now Durant back to Golden State. as they try and make a run.
I was just going to say it is uncertain if Durant has played his final game for the Suns, and that was the line that I was interested in, was according to ESPN's Brian Windhorst, the Warriors among the teams with interest. And we remember how that ended last time. Like, in all these situations, these little abrasive things that pop up, the last time when Kevin Durant was on his way out after winning championships, after going in and adding the resume point he had been missing, doing it as the best player on that team, even with Steph Curry on the roster, he leaves because everyone pointed to that relationship with him and Draymond Green and all the animosity that seemed to be at the heart of that there. Now, we've heard those two talk since. It seems like they've squashed a lot of this. But, Dad, you wonder if Kevin Durant and a potential reunion with the Warriors would still involve a guy like Draymond Green, knowing that's in the background.
And listen, we know Golden State is kind of, I think they're in kind of the Lakers win now mode. Steph's 36. If you're thinking
but Steph's also said, hey, we're not a good, like earlier in the season, he said, we're not a good team right now. We don't need to make wild swings at the trade deadline.
Well, would this be considered this would be a wild swing, bringing in an aging, all-time great, who again is coming to the end. He's been nicked up with injuries, and when you get injured and you're older, that obviously even adds to it. So they are, I think, truly in a win now mode, and they're not winning now.
It just seems like shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic for a lot of these teams, especially Matt Ishbia. You think about this with the Suns. Remember, Kevin Durant was his first big move. He was hours into coming in here and getting control of the Phoenix Suns when all of a sudden he orchestrates the move that gets Kevin Durant from Brooklyn to here. So that was his guy to start off with, and is a reminder that there's not a lot of loyalty out in these streets right now as the NBA tries to cap off what's been a banner week of them stealing headlines with this. That, Dad, certainly we talked about Jimmy Butler. That was one that felt a lot more name value-y than it would be actually effective. Kevin Durant to Golden State at the very least has a pinprick of nostalgia that would help this.
It does, but also you're talking about a Butler, you're talking about a Durant, 35 years old, you'd be trading them for the now. We had two trades for the future, right?
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox going and playing with Wemby, two young guys, to hopefully be together for a while. Luka going to the Lakers for the next, number of years. These weren't moves made for the now. They were made for the future.
Yeah, and we've seen now winning for the now has been built differently for a lot of these teams, or how we've gone about that has changed a lot, where this used to be the flavor of how we did things. For a while, we had this era of player movement that was how you got ready winners. And ever since then, and really capped off by the Boston Celtics win last year,
right.
Denver before that, it's like, all right, you got to kind of crockpot these things a little bit more in this day and age. And that's by design. We talk all the time about the NFL and the way they try and incentivize parity. The NBA has clearly tried to squash a lot of the super team stuff with putting in these second aprons and trying to curb spending on stars and getting multiple on the same team. And all roads have now led to one of the most chaotic weeks in the recent NBA's history.
And it's kind of work because you have Cleveland and Oklahoma City at the top of their conferences.
Yeah. I mean, again, who would have thunk it? Now we'll still get to the prove it mode, see if a lot of people believe that come the postseason, especially for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But there is no doubt things are changing around the association right now. And again, we'll see if any of these reports surrounding Kevin Durant's future in Phoenix with the Suns come to fruition before that February 6th deadline. Coming up next, Bomani Jones going to join us here for the right time on Gojo and Golic next here at Radio Row.
You're watching Super Week on DraftKings Network, presented by T-Mobile.
Thank you, Trey Wingo. Gojo and Golic here at Radio Row. I don't know why I've made that the bit this week.
Yeah,
Disembodying Trey is really,
Yeah.
it's just not, we get so used to hearing Jesse. You've been the voice for
Yes.
the DraftKings Network on so many of these things for a long time, so it's a little jarring to hear the dulcet tones of Hal Chapman Wingo III.
Yeah, they didn't ask me to do that one. Weird.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
So weird.
I'd have an issue with it.
Me
Over
too.
you, yeah.
Who do I need to talk to?
We're about to file a complaint and get this going here. By the way, the show just got increasingly more difficult to do because our friends at Grater's Ice Cream just stopped by. And now there's a container sitting like feet from me on the side of this that at some point we're going to pop the top on set here. I mean, only God can judge
I've been
us.
hiding a king cake over here.
Yeah, will you lift up the helmet
behind
there?
the helmet?
Yeah.
I have a king cake.
This is what life has devolved into around here.
I've been snacking in the breaks on the king cake.
It's hysterical because it's just a little something to take the edge off, I
Yeah,
guess.
it is.
It's basically a donut, right?
There are those that take a shot of whiskey to get the edge off.
Yeah.
I take a shot of sugar with
Just a shot of king cake. Yeah, I saw this guy walk over with this cooler while we were in our last segment, and he's like looking at us, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then Gojo goes over to get his special ice cream delivery. I mean, talk about VIP service out here.
Grater's is the best.
It is, and everyone's been asking me this week because they sent shockwaves through this nation when they combined two of Cincinnati's great eateries together. You always have the Grater's folks and the ice cream, the French pot. It's beautiful. And then you've got Skyline Chili, a little more controversial in the Cincinnati skyline, pun intended, as there's a lot of people that don't necessarily get down like that. And so they combined the two of them in an ice cream. I tasted it. People were like, man, does this taste like chili? It tastes like cinnamon. You're all going to love it. Yeah. I've said it's like Cinnamon Toast Crunch Milk with a few crackers thrown in it.
That was my fear. I'm like, you're not going to make ice cream taste like chili, so there has to be a favor. So, yeah, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I mean, Jesse, do you eat sweet cereal?
I mean, no, but not on a regular basis. But if you left me alone in a room with a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you'd come back in 10 minutes and the whole thing would be gone.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
We've all got our limits. You can only be pushed so far.
No, I legitimately can't buy cereal.
Yeah, I have the same. The thing they don't tell you about adulthood is that you can go and get whatever you want at any time.
It's horrifying.
There's nothing to stop you unless you are my dad and you have a wife who controls the things that come into the house. That's why every time people point out my dad's weight loss and talk about how good he looked, I was like, you can only give him so much credit because, again, this is coaching. This is someone else controlling the flow of goods into the house, making sure that he's going and working out. Like, Mom has really coached you into this.
She's the Andy Reid of the household,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
She's the Andy Reid. She's the Hall of Fame
Are you
coach.
calling yourself Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I didn't say it. I did. You said it.
Insinuated.
Did I say it, Jesse?
No, you didn't say it.
Did I ever say I am Patrick Mahomes?
No.
I think Mike said that.
Mike did
Maybe
say
that's
it.
because deep down you think of me as the Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, he's the QB of the family, and then your mom is the coach.
Yeah.
The metaphor could work.
Yeah, I mean, again, maybe
You're just a player.
Mom. Maybe you're like Alex Smith, real good.
Why you got to downgrade me? That's not even a downgrade. Not Alex.
Yeah,
Listen,
wow, okay.
Whoa.
Oh, my God.
I meant to
The
way
slander.
Mahomes is playing now. Look what you started.
It's unbelievable. What I've started here, you're the one that said it.
Come on.
Going out here and fixing your lips to slander Alex Smith, who's doing a phenomenal job now.
I did. It was no slander to Alex.
What have you done? You want to take shots at Brady in the booth now? Are you not excited for that either?
It was one of my greatest faux pas in the industry of my years doing it when Kansas City got rid of Alex Smith. And I'm like, what are you doing? You think Patrick Mahomes in his first year is going to come in and do anything? You get rid of a quarterback who took you to the playoffs. I was pro Alex Smith. And then Mahomes came in and had a great year.
I was going to say, lost in the sands of time, I think because Stu Gotz's take was just a little bit louder.
Yeah.
And it's Stu Gotz who has
and
that built into the model.
Exactly.
That one has been the one that's rung throughout history. I feel like you've been kind of allowed to skate by in a way that you should pay for.
Well, because Stu, Stu's kind of known for that, being loud and having a hot take like that. I was just flat out wrong. I mean, I was actually.
No, you were pretty wrong.
I was actually, while Stu looks for moments of headline, of grabbing with a hot take, I was actually trying to be serious. I was actually.
Is that better or worse?
Oh, it's worse. Oh, it's for sure worse because I was dead wrong about it. I'm supposed to be an analyst. Now, again, there's no perfect analyst out there. You're going to be wrong in things, but I was so wildly wrong.
I'm sure there were
a
number of people who were echoing that sentiment at the time.
Well, they weren't saying it out loud, Jesse. I said it out loud. I said it out loud.
Yeah.
He said there is no way on God's green earth.
I pulled the God's green earth out that Pat Mahomes will be able to play in his first year like Alex Smith, who just took him to the playoffs. And he
did it.
Oh my God.
I've said often during this week, you got the 07 Patriots version of this Kansas City Chiefs
right
dynasty.
out of the gate.
Right out of the gate here. It was a shock drop of Patrick Mahomes on the league, and unfortunately you had to take the L there.
I did. Big L.
It was. That was a tough scene. And so now here we are, and it seems like a lifetime ago, Dad, going back to a draft where the Kansas City Chiefs traded up to get him in a draft where he was not the guy that everyone thought was going to go near the top of this. It does, and I know people continue to go back to this, make it amazing that him and Cliff, considering what he's turned his career into now, the fact that Cliff Kingsbury, enjoying a nice career renaissance at the Washington Commanders at this point, could not win more games at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
It is remarkable. Like, you had the unbelievable one with him and Baker Mayfield that scored 1 billion points in that. But overall, from where he started to where he is now, really is an incredible story. Like, now it's gotten to the point where Pat and these guys do feel like they're somewhat of the villain. They do feel like they're somewhat hated. But again, when you go back to the origin of all this, in so many ways, it is a story that is an abnormality to get to this point.
And it also, again, brings up the fact of how important practice is. And I don't think enough people think about that because they hear practices in the NFL now. You're only allowed 14 padded practices the entire season, where when I was playing, we were in pads on Wednesday, Thursday, and if we lost the previous Sunday, we'd have uppers on shoulder pads on Friday. So basically hitting 2 to 3 times a week, let alone just 14 padded practices for the year. So I think people think practices aren't as engaged and involved, when that is the furthest thing from the truth. Because I remember that year when Mahomes wasn't playing, and then there was a thought of putting him in the next year over Alex Smith, and I was starting to raise the question, wait, Alex Smith is doing so well? I would talk to Andy Reid. Andy and I would have conversations, and Andy would tell me, you should see this kid in practice.
Yeah.
You should see him picking up the system, not only in practice but in the classroom. He just gets it. And that's what we talk about when there's rookie quarterbacks that are sitting, and it's like, when do they play? And we always say, well, what's he doing in practice? And that means so much and a lot of times, as I said, you don't think of, can you see that much in practice? Yeah, you can. Of how they're picking things up both in the walkthroughs, in the classroom, and in practice. And Andy couldn't talk enough about how Mahomes was in practice and ready to take over the team. And boy, was he right.
It's funny to see the parallels of that, and going back to the noise that you heard about Tua at Alabama when he was sitting behind Jalen Hurts, who's now in this game, of people going, they got this freshman kid, and they're winning all these games. Jalen Hurts, the winner, all that mentality that gets lobbed at him. But behind the scenes, and I remember it was leading up to that game, I'm down there and, the bullpen with all the other people from ESPN getting ready, and all the reporters are like, they're still talking about how great this kid looks right now, and there's a chance we could see him in this game. And then, lo and behold, we have one of the most impactful moments and one of the most bold coaching decisions in the history of college football. But you're right, Dad. It is a reminder that in so many of these cases, when we talk about players developing, what goes on here, Jordan Love, another recent example of that with the Green Bay Packers and his rise to prominence in that spot. It's like, hey, man, there's just some of this stuff that we do on the outside, I have to admit, every once in a while, we don't totally know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, we have absolutely no idea of what's going to go on, but it certainly has worked out for Kansas City, no doubt about it, as they go for a three-peat.
No, it certainly has here, and it, I don't know, it makes it a fascinating run-up here right now as we're going to kind of change on the fly here. Bomani Jones joining us here, the right time with Bomani Jones, obviously wherever you get your podcast here. Bo, just fresh off the credential line over there, man. How you doing?
That is exactly what happened. Like straight, no stops, right here,
Yeah. It's a hectic situation in here. How much time do you usually spend on Radio Row when you get out here? This doesn't feel like you're seen necessarily.
No, I do. On one level, it's cool because you see a lot of people you haven't seen in a while. Like I was walking in, saw my buddy Jason Romano from ESPN, literally the first person to put me on television ever.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. But otherwise, man, it's just walking a stroll. Like, hey, Daddy, you got 15 minutes? I give you 15 minutes. Oh, you and your dad. Yeah, I'll do it with both of you.
Yeah, you got to walk with a purpose through Radio Row and basically not stop.
Well, or if you try to get picked up, you kind of got to go slow.
Oh, then you have to say yes a whole lot.
Bat those eyes, let them know what time it is.
Show a
you
little
know
leg
what I mean?
here. Exactly. It is that kind of meat market around here at Radio Row, no doubt. It's been a weird week around here. I know you're just getting out here into town, right? So you've missed the initial wave. I know you've reacted to it plenty on the show, but being here and watching the NBA, Bigfoot the NFL at the beginning of this week has been eye-opening.
But I feel like I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. There was I think it may have been when Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix, for example. Yeah. Putting their trade deadline in Super Bowl week, I actually think was helpful because now that the world is so much bigger and there's so much more stuff to do, the Super Bowl kind of it hits its note and it kind of rides out until the weekend and then it spikes.
Sure.
That Thursday, you can get in and make something happen. And this week, it's not done.
Yeah. Oh, no. Are you buying a lot of this Kevin Durant smoke?
Every bit of it.
Golden State?
The
reunion.
I am buying every bit of it.
Well, you say it's not done, but nothing is going to outdo what has been done.
No.
So do you believe what you're hearing about Luka going to L.A., or do you think there's more involved?
I believe on the face value part, I do think that Luka was not Nico's kind of player in terms of the way. You got to realize – Nico's a Kobe guy.
Yes, he is.
And Luka is not that guy,
yes.
Right? Like in terms of if you believe that there's a certain level of preparation and all of these things that have to go into this, I could totally see that they got tired of him. It's just never has an NBA team ever gotten tired of a 25-year-old player that good. They have an incredible capacity for those sorts of guys. They didn't get tired of Allen Iverson at that point. Memphis didn't get tired of John Morant, who isn't as good, right? So it was shocking on that level, but I do believe that part. I also believe, and this is just my understanding of how things work in this world, the dynamics of how that trade went. And if it's true that Nico had lined up a deal that involved more players and more picks, and then the Lakers said no, and he just said fine, something told him, I got to get this done today. I don't know what that is, but it moved. If you view that trade in the context of, I have to do it.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, why did you have to do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the other part that we're all still kind of trying to wait to figure out there, because on the other side of this, like you mentioned, him not being Nico's cup of tea, and that's all fine, but what Nico Harrison has also done now is willingly put himself on the clock for his own job. Like you could have wrote it out with Luka Doncic there and extend your margin for error, and instead he lined up to say, hey, a couple years you might be able to send me packing.
Yeah, so let's operate on the assumption that Nico is not a moron.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And the only people I've heard say that Nico's a moron are people who don't know him. Nobody who knows him thinks that. There's nothing that we're saying that he is not aware of. Like, I mean, and maybe I'm giving too much a benefit of the doubt, but I'm operating on the assumption he knows Luka Doncic is really good at basketball.
Yep.
He knows all of these things. And he did it anyway, and very much so put himself in the box. Like, he sat there with Jason Kidd. No, this was me. You have to admire what's the word here? Is that chutzpah?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, chutzpah. Yeah, Jason Kidd just sat there and couldn't get a word in.
Yeah.
As Nico was taking responsibility for everything.
Well, don't get me wrong, though. If we know anything about Jason Kidd's movies, he's not jumping in front of a train.
Yeah, that's
yeah. If you want to say this is you.
yeah. Okay, that's good.
Ole. You got this one all by yourself. And no, I'm with you, and I think that's why we all are kind of sitting around waiting. It's sort of like a hand of blackjack where you're waiting to see the next card that comes out.
Yes.
And try and figure out, all right, what exactly did people think was coming down the chute here that was going to dictate how this went there. So I don't know. I just going through that and the shock and awe of it, and to now giving way to a more normal version of the trade deadline where we're hearing about the players involved in here. It's a lot of names, and I don't know necessarily if on the other side of this, and if you got time, you want to stick around for like 5 or 10 more minutes with on the other side of this, because I want to get into that. And then certainly, I think from the Super Bowl standpoint, something I want to pick your brain about is the Jalen Hurts perception that we've gone through over the last couple of years. It's been a roller coaster with this dude, really going back to his time at Alabama.
Yes.
That's now gotten us to this point where he goes into this game as a guy that people are treating kind of like a bum relative to the rest of people out here. So want to get into a lot of that. Again, it is Wednesday already, and it feels like we've been here a week on Radio Row. So coming up next, we will dive back into more of this with Bomani Jones, kind enough to stick around with us for another segment here on Gojo and Golic here at Radio Row, Super Bowl 59. Stick with us. We'll be back.
You're watching Super Week on DraftKings Network, presented by T-Mobile.
All right, welcome back to Gojo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. hanging out here still with Bomani Jones, The Right Time with Bomani Jones, wherever you get your podcast, the YouTube channel. It is all phenomenal stuff. And we were just talking off air a little bit ago. It was interesting. We had this massive, NBA trade shift with Luka Doncic going to L.A. We got a bunch of stuff still in the works right now. And then right after that, it was like, all right, a bunch of guys started feeling a little bold, and Myles Garrett all of a sudden puffs his chest out with the Cleveland Browns. And it's like, you know what? I want out too. But you made the observation these NBA guys now, the way this is going, are starting to see how the other half lives with their NFL counterparts.
Yeah, they tell Myles Garrett that people in hell want ice water, right? Like that's duly noted.
Yes.
I remember when Julius Peppers did that in Carolina. And he eventually got out, but they were just like...
Yeah. Management just kind of snickers when an NFL player, even a great one, tries to do it. But what's interesting about this NBA trade deadline is if Durant goes to Golden State, if Jimmy Butler goes to Phoenix, it's 35-year-olds moving teams. It's playing for the now. It's Nico Harrison saying we got AD. We have a 3 to 4 year window, which is probably more 1 to 2 year window to contend. But you have Luka going for a while in L.A. and De'Aaron Fox going to San Antonio to play with Wemby, where Chris Paul is already there. It's like the pick-and-roll capital of the world.
Right.
So you have a couple of moves in Luka and De'Aaron who are for the future moves.
Yeah, I think the Spurs are finally trying to win because I think we have let them slide for what has been a rather shameful experiment for the last 5 or 6 years. But they decided, okay, they want to try to win, and they made that move. Fox was the first guy to have the opportunity, I think, to get in on the Victor Wembanyama IPO.
Yes.
Like, no, let me get on that train right now. I just can't see how it's hard to play with the guy that's as tall as the goal.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because I watched those dudes with the Spurs, and I don't know what the hell they were thinking half the time. Like, throw the ball to the dude that's as big as the goal.
Right.
And I promise you, something good is going to result from this. But the other part that we were talking about is the other half lives. Yeah, no. LeBron James was not notified that they were bringing Luka Doncic in. They took the team from him.
Yep.
And did not at first I was like, this is crazy. Of course they told LeBron. But the point is that it's crazy they didn't tell LeBron.
Yep.
That really, I don't believe for a moment that happened. And the NBA teams, maybe the salaries have just gotten too high. Maybe it's the nature of these aprons. But they've made the decision that, hey, man, we gotta take this back. I don't think Kevin Durant. You think Kevin Durant wants to go play for the Warriors again?
No.
Hell no. He don't want to go do that. There's no way in the world he wants to do that. And so this is a whole new era of the NBA that I know for fact has players shook up.
Are players losing? Well, we said NBA players have the most power. Are they losing power?
I think you still have power to a degree. I think the guys that are losing power are like a little farther down on the chain, perhaps, or maybe the guys that are losing power are the ones that are all the way up because they have the potential to make so much money that it becomes problematic for what they're doing. But I will make this point. I did a TV show for HBO called Game Theory for a couple years, and we did a thing about player empowerment, and I said this has always been a myth. It was LeBron empowerment for a little while, but look what happened. He doesn't even have it anymore, right? They've always had leverage. They've never really had power, and now the salaries for the first time, because of the nature of this cap, are turning against them. The NFL with a hard cap, there was always that trade-off when you got it. The NBA's cap being so fluid, it was different. This is a lot closer to a hard cap than it has ever been, and that takes the power away from you when you make all the money.
And that's what those guys, I mean, baseball, all those guys fight tooth and nail to try and stay away from, and you're right. Now for NBA management, they have found their way into a spot where, and it's what everyone's trying to do, incentivize parity by being able to break this up, and so you got to have the young teams that hit on the draft picks and do all these things that we've watched, the Celtics, the Cavaliers.
But the problem with the young guys hitting on draft picks is that young guys in the draft used to be 22 and now they're 19.
Sure.
I saw Amen Thompson play a couple nights ago at Madison Square Garden, and he looks incredible to be a rookie. And then I looked it up. It made sense. He just turned 22.
Right.
Like these young guys, it's going to take you time before they're real contributors to whatever you're doing. So I don't know even how you do it. Like, nobody's getting there because their rookie is at the end of the first contract and then got it done.
That is such an interesting, dichotomy between the NFL and the NBA right now, where The NBA, you've got that going on. The NFL, especially because of how the money's changed in college now, you are starting to see guys think a lot longer and harder about going back for that extra year, especially certain positions like running back, where now you are going to, if you're the NFL, probably sitting here kind of loving what you're seeing because you're going to get guys with more tape that you can see further along in their life cycle.
That's right.
I think we've already seen that with the quarterback position. I think the day of taking the quarterback in the first round is at 13 college starts is over. You look at this last crew that went in from Bo Nix, 62 starts, Jaden Daniels, a 3-4-year starter, Caleb Williams, a 3-year starter. Guys have had a lot more experience. So you're getting guys are coming in older now than a couple of years ago.
That is true. And then I think but college also has the interesting wrinkle of this, which is Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe, which is I've made some money. I don't feel like doing this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the NFL right now. Like, I think that level of high talent where I don't know if – like, Jalen Milroe needs to trick somebody into buying into the physical talents and then work the rest out from there. Because to me, he's not even Anthony Richardson, where Anthony Richardson is erratic, but all the film guys are like, no, he's doing all the stuff.
Yep.
He just is missing when he makes the throws, right? But those guys, I think, still you need to sell high on physical talent.
Yeah.
And try to get somebody to decide, like, oh, okay. Like in that draft, I would have taken Anthony Richardson number 1. I would have rolled the dice on Josh Allen, too. Now, there's only been one Josh Allen ever.
Yes.
All time.
Yes.
God knows he's made a fool of me in the process. But, you know, that's the game they're playing.
Exactly. Well, talking about Josh Allen, it kind of leads us to the game we have here and one of the quarterbacks involved. Jalen Hurts seemed like he was kind of doing a version of that slow uptick in improvement year to year for a while. And then last year happened, and coming off the Super Bowl where we saw this matchup the last time where he played the best game we'd seen, outplayed Mahomes, all the stuff that we hear all the time. The way people talk about Jalen Hurts right now has become sort of wild. You've been surprised at all the way it seems people have turned on that dude?
Oh, no, because I'm right there with him.
Okay.
But for me, it's not a turn. It's the unfortunate reality that I watched him play for 2 professional teams before he got to the pros, and both of them at once were limited by his passing, while he also is SEC Offensive Player of the Year as a freshman, Heisman runner-up when he was at Oklahoma.
Yep.
Like, the issue is not that he isn't good.
Right.
The issue is that there appears to be a bit of a cap on where you could go with him. Now, the counter argument, again, is, well, what about the year they went to the Super Bowl?
Sure.
Yes, this guy doesn't look like that guy. This part that's not fair to him, it works out well for him, but it's not fair to him. They're so loaded that he is their weakest position group. And that's not his fault.
Right.
Every other position group they have is absolutely loaded. He just happens to be, if they don't win, it's most likely going to be because of him than it is anybody else.
So can you put the game on his shoulders to win?
No. That is my belief. Yeah. I don't think that you can if you're doing something, like you decide we gonna run some of that. Like it's gonna be him and Saquon, and then we go from there.
No, him passing.
Yeah. No, I don't think you. Al, I think that the stars can align and he can have a really good game. But if it is, we need you to do this, not hey, the kid's rolling.
Yeah.
Now that other guy.
Yeah.
We need you. I know you need me to do it.
Yeah.
It's good.
Everybody relax. I'll do it.
It don't matter what the numbers are. It doesn't matter. I got you.
I think I always take it above Andy Reid. I don't know if gets enough credit. Andy Reid and where he's going to go down in the annals of coaching history.
Hey man, if this keeps going the way it does, what we say about Belichick is what we're about to say about him.
Exactly right.
And the fact that he's been able to transplant that success, I get it didn't obviously materialize all the way at the top when he was in Philadelphia, but what he did there is not nothing, and then to be able to retrofit it to here in a different way with this quarterback and have this run is insane.
I mean, they went to, 5 NFC championship games
and a Super Bowl
when he was in Philadelphia, and a Super Bowl. And look, he wound up in the place. Them moving on from him is the rare thing that worked out for everybody. They won a Super Bowl before he did. Time for him was up. He reset and figured out what to do. And now the Chiefs, what is this, 8 straight years they've won that division or something crazy like that, that we don't even think about it because they're so good that we don't think of them in the context of this division at all.
Right, yeah, they have transcended that where we're dealing with 5 of 6 the last Super Bowl appearances, and now on the cusp of 3 straight here. Again, the right time with Bomani Jones, you guys already know it. It's phenomenal. Check it out. Bo, going to be wandering around Radio Row doing the walk.
Oh, yeah, I'll do the stroll, man. I'm proud of you still wearing that hat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's
hey, they were there.
It's
they were.
It's taken a while to recover. I've already sold myself on the copium of look at the talent on next year's roster.
Yeah, but I'll say this though. I didn't think they could get this far in the way that they did, and like
Marcus got it going on.
He does. He
Marcus
does.
got it
He's
going
got
on.
really black hair, too.
And he's
really
young
black
and
hair.
good looking.
Yeah, like AI looking.
Yes.
Needs to be investigated. We'll get to that one the next time we get Bomani on here. Thanks, Mo.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
man. You guys be good.
All right, we welcome you guys back and wrap it up here a different way. We mentioned Radio Row, Super Bowl 59. We usually finish off this show with this, that, and the third, 3 quick stories, but we got some fun guests this week that we get to bring out here, and that includes the man kind of hosting everyone in his house this week. Cam Jordan, Saints All-Pro defensive end, kind enough to join us here now on behalf of the folks at Old Spice. But do you feel like you're kind of letting everybody in right now, telling them to take off their shoes, welcome them here?
Absolutely. Welcome to the 504, the Big Easy, baby. Like it's the Magnolia way. It's real proper out here. You know, guys can come out here. We're going to show love. Everybody's going to take care of you as long as you stay in the right areas. And that you know where the right areas is. So right now, this week, enjoy bourbon for a little bit. Don't deviate from bourbon.
There you go. That's the advice.
Right. Yeah, go to Chapatulas. Go walk. Walk the river walk. That's an amazing place. You're going to find great food. You're going to find a great time. Also, come back. Once you hear music, and when you can no longer hear music, don't stray too far.
And don't act the fool, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also stay in your lane.
Yeah.
No, we get it. You may be from Philly. You may think you're the biggest, baddest things walking. You're not. You're not.
No.
Yeah, you may be from Kansas City and know you're not the biggest, baddest things walking. But you are, team-wise.
Yes, team-wise, but know thyself when you're walking around here. And Andy Reid and Pat and those guys are not walking around to security with you. So that's a good advice. When you stop hearing the music, stop your feet and go.
Exactly. When you don't hear music, you can't smell good food. Guess what, big fella? Go back towards the main attraction.
And enjoy the food. And I have the king cake here that I've been eating. Enjoy the king cake.
I see your king cake. If it ain't from Dong Fung's, I'm probably going to say something.
Okay.
Go check out an ooey gooey cake.
Ooey
gooey gonna get stick right where you don't want it to.
All right.
It's gonna give you like the sweats. Like, how many calories did I really have intake to? And while you're sweating, that's probably why you should walk around with maybe some deodorant of some. Some would even say the most awarded total body deodorant.
Okay.
Twice.
All right. Go on there. Well, I mean, and you've got your little, you've got your prediction box with you next year, right?
Absolutely.
That's your buddy you're toting around here right now?
Look, you have to worry about, Pat Mahomes. You have to worry about Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. And me, I'm going to be cooling on Sunday because I don't have to sweat. Because the Super Bowl, I already know what's going to happen because I got the wise old sage, Old Spice guy. I say like, hey, is there going to be a winner on Sunday? And are they going to be in red and white or, black or green? Whatever you prefer. I'm going to say it's going to be a high-scoring Sunday for us.
Double the freshness, double the yes.
Wow. All right. There we go.
So we know it's not going to be a low-scoring game.
So for those under-bettors here, take note. The Old Spice guy has spoken.
High-scoring game. So if you ask me a question, I go ahead and hit the button. So what do you want to know about Sunday?
All right, Sunday here. Will the Gatorade color be red this Sunday?
Oh, I wouldn't entertain that thought.
Wow. All right.
There we go.
Wow.
There we
I
go.
feel the line shifting underneath
That's what
my feet.
I'm just simply saying, like, if there's a question to be had, I'm going to put, I'm going to put my faith in the wide open.
All right. I'll ask an actual football question to put him on the spot.
There we go.
Can Jalen Hurts lead Philly to a Super Bowl victory passing the ball?
Ooh. All right. You heard him.
Yes. Twice.
Oh.
Wow.
Run it back.
Wow.
That's what we call a double down. Don't create tension. Just create that total body dry feel deodorant coming from out here. Like just complete 24/7 freshness, total body freshness, and he's giving you the greatest answers. What do you need to know? My guy's got it.
All right. Incredible. So you've got that wealth of knowledge right here. So you can either have him answer this or I can ask you and answer this. As we get ready for this week, a lot of people talking about Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, as someone that may be the next head coach down here in New Orleans. Do you watch with a little added eye on that? Where are you at on what you're looking for in the next head coach here?
I'm all for whatever the upper brass, clearly Mickey Loomis, is going to do. You said Mickey Loomis, Gail Benson. Saw a wonderful Gail, our team's owner, yesterday, and I tried to get something out of her. I said, hey, Mrs. B, how are you? What do you feel about Darren Rizzi? How do we feel about Kellen Moore? And she's like, oh, they're such nice guys. That told me nothing. It gave me very opaque answers here. So I've got nothing for anybody. I've got complete faith that my franchise is going to get right.
Can we ask him if Kellen Moore is going to be the next head coach in the New Orleans Saints?
I wouldn't sweat it. It's a yes.
Wow.
That is a different answer than because I asked him the same question earlier.
Okay.
And I got a different answer. And so it was like, he was like, oh, we'll see. And now it seems like a resounding yes.
All right, little hours have passed. He's taking in new information.
Why did I text Mickey Loomis when I could have just asked him?
That's exactly right. So how about a question that really only you can answer?
Okay.
14 years in the league.
Yeah.
How you feeling? How much long? Is it year to year? Or how much longer are you going?
I probably finished the season more motivated than ever. Specifically because, whatever happened during our season, I found myself like, I want more. Like, I'm sitting there somewhere in that Carolina game that we lost, and I'm like, how do you lose to Carolina? But then Carolina turned it up. So prior to that, we were sitting there like, this is the worst team in America. And then they beat us, and somehow we give teams confidence. It felt like a lot like Green Bay 2 seasons ago.
Sure.
And I was like, Jordan Love, this is probably the worst game I've seen from a quarterback and then, the second half happened and he finished with like 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and we lost whatever that was, 19-17 or 18-17. I was like, oh, he has another gear. That's what we felt about Carolina. And we give teams confidence somehow. We can shut teams down, limit them to the least amount of touchdowns or least amount of yards that they have, like Kansas City and Philadelphia Eagles we did this year. Or we can just boost guys' confidence like we did with Carolina. They end up winning multiple games this year. And I was like, got to start somewhere.
Well, I mean,
good luck, Chuck.
You look 14 years. You look like you're in great shape. I work out with your dad.
Okay.
At Exos
out in Arizona.
And he's in great shape. So maybe like father, like son.
Yeah. Not genetics. Like I never caught the old man 6-pack. Like I was like, they're like, when you have kids, you're going to get that old man strength. And I was like, hell yeah. And then I had a kid, and I was like, Dad has this. So where's my?
You also live in New Orleans, which
that is true.
It is.
You were God's strongest soldier, handed his toughest battle, trying to get a 6-pack down here.
I mean, you could be in worse places. You could be in Cleveland or something, and where you got defensive ends that are trying to get out of there.
That is true. You're happy down here.
I'm happy here. I'm like, man, who wouldn't want to be in black and gold? Maybe it's black and gold because it looks so good on my skin.
That is true. Would it look good on Myles Garrett, the opposite side of you?
We both know that it would. I'm not going to throw a pitch out there just yet. I'll text you later, Myles. You're my guy.
There we go.
Yeah, be careful of tampering issues.
Yeah, no,
Who's
never.
tampering?
No
I'm simply saying, while you're down here, maybe get comfortable.
That is true. Can we ask the Old Spice guy, Myles Garrett, future New Orleans Saint?
Oh, pair him with Carl Granderson.
Oh.
That smells off to me.
Oh, wow. All right.
Did not see that one coming.
Wow, man.
Did not see that one coming.
All
That's a
right.
curveball.
That is
That
a curveball
is.
here. But listen, the Old Spice guy has spoken. We are just his messengers here. You mentioned getting a chance to be around both of these teams here.
Absolutely.
What's your outlook on this game? What do you actually think goes down here?
Man, I think with as high-powered as the Philadelphia Eagles are, if it's not a close game, I'm going Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You've got their tight end as well. Is that Dallas?
Dallas Goedert,
Dallas.
yeah.
I always want to call him Godare.
Yeah,
and that's the gosh darn it.
Maybe down here in New Orleans, Godare,
Gosh darn
yeah.
it. But you call it Dallas Goedert. You talk about Saquon Barkley, Mr. 2K, Mr. 2,500, whatever you want to call it. You can say that's a high potent offense. And Jalen Hurts is going to leave if it gets close to a first down. Guess who's in a nice little goalie or a little quarterback sneak, and he's going to get it.
Yeah, but it's on that Philly defense to stop Mahomes in that offense. And Philly defense
And who
on
says
all
they
three,
can't? Have
on
you
all
seen
three
Jalen
levels.
Carter? Have you seen big old plugger and Jordan Davis?
Yeah.
There's no nose tackle bigger than him right now.
Yep. And Zach Bond playing well, the secondary.
All-pro. If we're talking about all-pro, former Saints,
I was going to
all-pro
say,
Zach Bond.
how is that seeing him go on and
Yeah.
have that kind of success
I
now
love
after
it.
that time?
I love to see if you can't get paid at your home team, go make some hay somewhere else. He had an opportunity at the end 2 seasons ago on third downs and showed some gumption. And he went from a special teams guy to okay, we see something.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't retain him. He goes to Philly and he's balling. Good
Philly
for
reaped
him.
the benefits. Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, had we seen that his rookie year,
Yeah.
But he progressed as he should, as you should as a player. He stepped his game up each and every year, and then decided to bet on himself for 1 year. And now that 1 year, it better be a multiple-year extension at the highest level for him.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
talk 150-something tackles. You talk about all-pro. Hell yeah.
Yeah, he's going to get paid.
Is Zach Bond due for a big payday this offseason? Old Spice guy.
I'm never going to let him say that because we both know this is true.
That is true.
Zach Bond,
true.
From sideline to sideline, vertical down. We're not even going to take a chance.
We don't want to take a chance to put any bad juju on that.
Absolutely, because Zach Bond deserves every piece of that money that's coming his way.
Absolutely. All good juju up here. Again, Cam Jordan joining us on behalf of Old Spice here. Cam, really appreciate you. Great job representing the city this week. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I'm coming in with a fresh mindset with the idea that we have total body freshness when you use Old Spice. 24/7, total body deodorant.
Nice.
We'll see you tomorrow, fresh as ever.
Bro.